Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome back to the 40th audio file in the audio cast series known as the Q News Patriot. I am the Q News Patriot. My name is SGAnon. I come to you today absolutely elated. We are experiencing incredible events right now. Wouldn't you agree? We are seeing desperation moves from this deep state apparatus, the likes of which I did not realize in my own um, imaginings were going to be quite as dramatic. Um, Incredible things. We've recently been enduring, as many of you know, a spell of false flag attacks. These attacks, when you use the term false flag, that does not mean that something did not occur. It simply means that there is additional information, contextually important information as to why it occurred. In other words, what is being reported about it may or may not be accurate. And it's important to really dig deep into the fingers and the webs and things like that, which are tied to these incidents. These railway accidents happening in the United States right now are not accidents. These are purposeful attacks by the deep state cabal, the Black Hat Mercenary Alliance, um, out of desperation to slow or stop our advance. We are experiencing panic in a very real sense from the individuals and entities who have had for so long control over our corporate society. We knew that 2023 would be the year of false flags, would be the year of desperation moves. It would be a difficult year in some ways for mankind, and it seems that we're off to that start. However, it is also the year of understanding. This year, we all will gain sight. All of us sort of united together as one, we the people, by year's end. And military justice, in my estimation, is supposed to begin this year and carry us probably through the next year to 18 months beyond that. The events that are happening right now with these townships, these towns that are so adversely affected by these chemical spills, these um, overt actions on behalf of controlled law enforcement, controlled local government, um, controlled community levers of power. It's very tragic and it is very sad. And it's important for us to stand together and stand strong and realize that real suffering is happening in the United States and around the world. My family and I will be indirectly affected, but affected nonetheless by what happened in East Palestine. We are within the zone of water, groundwater, that the Ohio River and these contaminated areas supplies. We have already received local reports in our lying news that our water is perfectly fine. I can assure you, in my estimation, it is not. So we are going through and taking some steps as a family to hedge against um, the death thrashes that this deep state is putting this country through. We are at war. These are attacks to prevent the unsealing of things like the JP Morgan involvement in the Epstein ring, the participation by Mr. Daley, CEO, former CEO of JP Morgan Chase, in human and child trafficking, in direct contact with Mr. Epstein using code names such as Beauty and the Beast and Say Hello to Snow White for me. JP Morgan Chase happens to be a main financial backer and an investor in the portfolio which owns and controls the Norfolk Southern Rail Group. These events are having the effect of catalyzing and uniting Americans and we the people around the world. People who I never thought would be on board with the idea that there was a power above government that could control how things happen at the local community level, completely bypassing our ability to represent ourselves and control the directionality of our societies, have begun to realize that that is exactly the case. I reported recently on Truth that some individuals I work in and with and around considerably younger individuals in the 18 to 26, 27 demographic. They are on a warpath over what is occurring, and they are making and sharing TikTok videos, actually, if you can believe it, which are getting several 100,000 views in a matter of hours. Those groups, those demographics have been ignited in this war, and it will not be long before they are within the Patriot fold. If you are in a position where you can support or provide aid to individuals in these communities around our country, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Texas, Florida, all of these localities that are experiencing these, Oregon, if you're in a position to provide support and aid, please do so, or please consider doing so, I should say. These are trying times. These are the times that try men's souls. But we have to be strong, knowing that as we live through the death of the old system, we are allowing it to set itself up for total irrelevance and oblivion into the future. For example, what comes of all of the entities connected to these railway groups legally and regulations wise, I apologize. What happens to them in these regards will never again allow this sort of conglomeration to control infrastructure. This is the catalyst where we, the people, are expected to step in to the greatest extent possible in involvement in our communities and taking back our sovereignty locally, taking back our positions in government locally, doing what we can from where we are at, following our call. We keep coming back to that, following our call and getting involved in the way that suits us best and resonates with our soul. These events and others are highlighting to the greatest majority of we the people who are not on board with the Patriot awakening movement just yet, how important it is to exercise the sovereignty that we have. And we have to understand what that looks like first. These entities will force themselves into oblivion and complete irrelevance into the future. Infrastructure will be at the control of the people again, likely regulated softly by an internal interstate commercial apparatus when all of this is said and done. But those apparatuses will be in control of and report to we the people. We must control our supply chains. We must control how we acquire goods. We must control from factory to shelf. We need to be the owners in whichever technology we are utilizing for our commerce, our transportation, and our critical infrastructure. We are learning more and more about what that looks like here in the United States of America and around the world. This deep state apparatus is in an absolute petrified panic. We have control of the people's house again, honest control of the people's house within the confines of a military scaffolding, a COG, continuity of government safe mode, if you will, for our country that allows us to go in and be more hands-on with the levers of power, the programming, if you will, of how things are done and executed. And we are leveraging that power to bring transparency through the public consumable channels and the mass population accepted lens to bring them into the fold with many of the Patriots and Anons out there. The weaponization of government select committee is doing irreparable harm to the deep state's ability to control their election narrative. They're also exposing the U.S. intelligence agencies and the U.S. DOJ's complicity in hiding and censoring and overall interfering with the election processes in the United States of America. The same time this is going on, JP Morgan, Chase, and Epstein back in the news being exposed as having personal conversations with one another at the very top. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court of the United States, again functioning, functioning within the confines of a mass military operation at the highest levels, will rehear the petition for the Brunson national emergency case. This petition cites the breach of oath of office that was committed by all members in the government who approved the stolen election without committing to at least 10 days of investigative period. It has the potential to be very impactful here in the United States. 1 week after that, on February the 24th of 2023, the Supreme Court will hear another case, the case that identifies the child trafficking, murder, and torture ring that ensnared the Supreme Court itself, as well as several other high-ranking officials, both elected and unelected, in the U.S. government. This ring goes back to the Knights of Malta and involves the Jesuits. While those are tangential points, it remains that this case, the petition to hear this case, will be distributed for conference, or has been distributed and will be heard in conference on the 24th of this month. Coincidentally, 2 days before that, on February the 22nd of 2023, the Russian parliament will convene an extraordinary session, and President Vladimir Putin is expected to address Russia. I believe it was on the 21st, but it may also be on the 22nd, in regards to what is about to happen in Europe. We are accelerating at a breakneck pace. Over the last few weeks, we've seen several trafficking operations, anti-trafficking operations, circumstantial evidence provided in and around the Pacific Rim, uncharacteristic flooding, air being pumped into the ground in various places, very consistent explosions at identical depths across several square miles. These events are happening in the Pacific Rim, within North America, and then in the southeast portion of Canada, the northeast of the United States, and within Europe as well. These search and rescue and search and neutralize operations are ongoing, and the underground war continues. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to do a quick decode from President Trump. I was so, I wouldn't say astounded, but encouraged by this particular decode. I simply could not help but to share it with each of you today. I found it extremely odd today that at around 2:35, exactly at 2:35 Eastern Standard Time, President Trump put out a fairly long truth. It was in two parts, both parts sent at the timestamp 2:35 Eastern Time, where he referred to himself in the third person as President Trump 7 times. He used the term president 7 times. Additionally, within this, what I believe to be a very laden calm, he uses the term the president, I believe it's 3 times. Naturally, I got curious what the president was trying to tell us. So I came over here to the cue boards and I searched several different ways. I searched the timestamp. I searched post 2:35 and 5:32. I didn't find anything remarkable in them. I searched the phrase President Trump and the phrase the president. Had several interesting drops returned, but again, nothing that seemed overly relevant to the narrative space that we're currently seeing, or the space that we can discern with our research to maybe be pointing us to behind the scenes. But as I went through the drops with the timestamp of 2:35, a drop from August 10th of 2018 Drop 1837 absolutely stuck out to me based on what is going on in the world right now. The drop reads, Patriots, we are under extreme heavy attack by 3 intel agencies, foreign and domestic. We are in communication and coordination with necessary divisions. Stay strong, stay together. That drop reads extremely relevant to the current events. We know that these attacks being prompted by these organizations that hold financial ownership within these companies are happening at the behest of their masters who are found in the Five Eyes intelligence community. It is no doubt a biological act of war being committed again against the peoples of the United States of America. But I believe the commander-in-chief is telling us that necessary divisions and important areas worldwide are coordinating to help handle and mitigate these events. Now, this is where this decode got interesting. I noticed the post 1837, and I thought that there was some significance to that particular number. I know 1837 was a fairly interesting year. Shortly after the Jackson era here in the United States of America, when the country was still a republic. And I came over and I began searching significant events in U.S. history in 1837. And what's fascinating is in 1837, Martin Van Buren became president of the United States. Van Buren, let me read some of this to you. Van Buren was inaugurated as the 8th president of the U.S., president from New York, and he was the first president from New York and the first not to be primarily of British descent. He followed in trends set by John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, becoming the 3rd sitting vice president to be elected to the presidency. Chief Justice Roger Taney administered the oath of office on the east portico of the U.S. Capitol. Vice President Johnson took his oath of office in the Senate chamber. The economic panic of 1837 led to widespread unemployment, economic depression, devaluing of cotton and paper money, and bank and financial failures. President Van Buren blamed the crisis on the easy availability of credit and rampant speculation. Surplus revenue had been distributed to the states, and Treasury notes were issued to help stave off a broadening of the crisis. Now, what's very fascinating about this is that we know the United States is headed for a financial event, the likes of which it's not seen except maybe once or twice in its history. We also know that the petrodollar itself, regardless of the nation that's doing the trading with it, must come significantly down in value. Some people say go all of the way to zero. I'm not a financial advisor and I don't know, but I do know that a financial event has to occur so that a defunding en masse of this worldwide cabal of evil can happen at a singular point in time. Significant events, however, in 1837 include Michigan being admitted as the 26th U.S. state. Today, published 2:46 p.m. on USA Today from February 16 of 2023, emergency crews were on the scene of a freight derailment Thursday near Detroit. Around 30 trains went off the tracks and led to a road being closed Thursday. 30 train cars, went off the tracks and led to a road being closed Thursday where the derailment happened in Van Buren Township. President Trump is telling us that these events, in some respects, are known, that these events at some level are being, I shouldn't say allowed to happen, but they are part of a larger and broader war. At the same time, we are being encouraged by a direct pointing to a drop, which is unquestionably tied to this time period in our current goings on, to stay strong and stay together. We know we're under attack. We know it's heavy. We know that there are losses being inflicted on both sides right now. But we, the people, if we stand together and stand true, are undefeatable long term. Our awareness, our awakening, our understanding of what's occurring, our knowledge that this is an event happening as a result of a Manchurian government, that this is an event occurring as a result of very evil agencies at the very top of the hidden shadow power structure seeking to preserve and defend and secure their own longevity. The fact that we know all of that is deadly to them. That is why we're experiencing the things we are experiencing. And we're about to experience a significant escalation in terms of military participation around the world as the European war is preparing to go worldwide. When I say worldwide, I don't mean every nation. I mean all theaters sort of tying together for the same ends and symbolic power alliances being dismantled and destroyed. The Russian military is preparing and actually has already begun a large-scale offensive in the country of Ukraine. The Russian military has been stockpiling military encampments housing thousands and thousands of soldiers each in the eastern regions of what was formerly Ukraine. Additionally, Russian units eclipsed more than 680,000 on the ground in that area of the world ready to go. Military coordination between Russia and Belarus, between Belarus and Hungary, between South Africa and Hungary, and between South Africa and soon to be China are evidences that we can see where this emerging multipolar alliance around the world, born from the BRICS economic system, is going to help rebalance the levers of power. When the full scale of this offensive becomes public to the people, we will see NATO involvement, and we will see interesting dishevelment occurring in the Western European countries, especially as they sort of balk at what they wish to accomplish and what they do not wish to accomplish. The Russian Foreign Ministry for Defense, or excuse me, the Russian Defense Ministry, and I believe the Russian Foreign Minister as well, but I would need to double check that last part. But the Russian Defense Ministry has already identified proxy NATO involvement as happening in Ukraine. They are aware of it, and they consider it a prelude to war. Additionally, we have it hitting the mainstream that Biden and the Black Hats, the deep state operation that went down in the North Sea with the Nord Stream pipelines, was premeditated and designed to disrupt the energetic climate, the energy climate within Europe, as well as to attack critical infrastructure of the Russian Federation. Before this is all over, we're going to see significant conflict between large-scale nation states publicly. We're going to see involvement of different NATO forces in Europe and different governments standing down, going through transitions or changes. We, the people in different areas, taking back control as this battle for good and evil seeks to achieve, or battle against good and evil seeks to achieve a balance here in our world. The alliance will not lose. The alliance has control, in my estimation, of most of the key areas of true military power and weapons of mass destruction in the world. If we did not, we would see events like pathogenic diseases, nuclear rogue weapons being detonated, space-based weapons being used in metro areas, and much more. Speaking of metro areas, different areas, I'm here to report for the first time in a while a genuine heads up that I was given from my mentor. My mentor pointed me recently in the direction of the Revolutionary War and what symbolically happened with America's founding, and then the history that went forward from that as we added and incorporated sovereign states into the union, typically first as territories and then full admission granted later. I began to see an interesting pattern, and it is my belief now that we are going through a version of this pattern symbolically here within the United States of America. The Idaho legislature recently passed a bill that would grant the state authority to incorporate Oregon counties within the borders of Idaho and to redraw the borders of the state. I'm here to tell you that as we go through this process this year and next year here in the United States of America, as we enter into military justice being established at federal governmental levels, both in the United States and around the world, and military involvement being more publicly shown, we, the people in various sovereign municipalities and localities, are going to be asked to do our part in rejecting the corporation system and reapplying to come into the republic, the new republic of whichever area it's being formed, in this case, the Republic of the United States of America. The states within the US, before this process is said and done, will reject their statehood to the corporation, and they will apply for and receive, if all conditions are amenable for everyone, a new recognition of sovereign statehood under the Republic of the United States and the Constitution of the United States of America. Much of this has been going on preparatorily, in preparation for, I should say, behind the scenes for a while. Additionally, this wave, if you will, beginning within the United States of America, will begin on the West Coast and move east. We are witnessing the rebirth and refounding of the nation. But we are all individual sovereign souls, are we not? We are being given, in many cases, a choice every day about how we go about this awakening journey. Our choice is important going forward. Our voice, which we use to express our choice, is important going forward. And so we must be actively participating in creating the history that we wish to see. We must be aware of what our rights under our republic and under God really are. There is a movement within this nation and a movement all around the world to redefine society to one of liberty instead of surveillance, to one of freedom instead of slavery. That movement is well known by this White Hat Alliance. And it is my belief that in many respects, this alliance depends on this movement to carry the torch of consciousness in the correct direction. Stay strong. Stay together. The implosion of the corporate autocracy that has controlled this entire earth is happening before your very eyes. The fallout from that, unfortunately, is happening before our very eyes. We are living it. I am living it. I have a young child. I am fully aware of what the CDC recently chose to do. I am fully aware that that is directly and personally affecting me. But we press forward. We press forward because nothing will stop us. We press forward because we are not afraid. We press forward because we can see the fire, and we will walk right through it to victory. I'm going to close tonight's file with a little bit of encouragement and a heads up for many of you out there with some squeamish stomachs. Cannibalism is going to become a mainstream topic of discussion this year and will be in the news in much more than a simple entertainment space. In 2022, no less than 5 separate movies or series came out, focusing primarily on cannibalism, including a large movie called Cannibal Lake. We know that movies tend to tip us off. And on December the 23rd of 2022, CNN discussed society's fixation and trend towards cannibalism. We're being given a heads up and we're being prepared. I've reported previously that Epstein-style islands, but worse, will come to the narrative space this year. Be aware of this. Ask for spiritual armor. Leverage that true power that we talk about. We are unstoppable, and they know it. The clock is continuing to tick. And with each passing day, this deep state dismantles more and more of its own structure and does so in a fashion that sets we the people up for a permanent eradication and solution. It's being done legally. It's being done militarily. It's being done kinetically. It's being done financially. It's being done medically. Though we may walk through a valley of the shadow, we have no evil to fear. Though evil may walk amongst us, we have the light. There is nothing they can do. And with that, everyone, I leave you today empowered and encouraged. And I will be back with you again very soon. This is SGAnon. Thank you. Bye-bye.